tier 2. I mean, stuff started to like step up here. It wasn't like a huge, whoever made this list was pretty accurate for the most part. There are a couple things I would have left off the list, but what are you gonna do? One thing I will say is that as I go through this list, I'm just getting more and more tired and angry and sad. Like, it started off so hopeful and nice, and now I'm just I'm not having a good time anymore. Saw, directed in 2004, directed by James Wan. Photographer Stanheight, and oncologist Lawrence Gordon regain consciousness while chained to pipes at either end of a filthy bathroom. As the two men realize they've been trapped by a sadistic serial killer named Jigsaw and must complete his perverse puzzle to live, flashbacks relate the fates of his previous victims. Meanwhile, Dr. Gordon's wife and young daughter are forced to watch his torture via closed-circuit video. I just have to say, Jigsaw would be very good at escape rooms. I both love and hate these movies. Like, the first one is really the only one that I like. Everyone after that just pisses me off because it makes me so mad. I find these movies rather boring, and I don't care for Jason Wan's directing style, but I will say that the first act and the final twist are pretty fucking awesome, even though the twist doesn't hold up when you think about it longer than 2 seconds. I remember when I first saw this movie, when I was like 12, I was like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing ever, and then I thought about it and was like, ooh, you know, these movies are just known for their gore. Yeah, but like the first one, I was so confused when I first saw it because I was like, aren't these movies known for their gore? And there was nothing in it. Like, there's this whole part where he saws off his leg to get back to his family and they don't even show it. Fucking pussies, damn. And they did have like a really small budget for this movie. I'm gonna look it up, hold on. Yeah, it was like 1.2 million for the budget. The most painful part for me was the guy whose punishment is like razor wires and he like had to tunnel out of them because he was suicidal. The guy who played Adam was a pretty shit actor, and the doctor was pretty good. Enjoyment scale 4, pain scale 3, gore meter 4. Oh shit, Midsummer. I'm gonna nut. I'm gonna pre-dude. Released in 2019, directed by Ari Aster, a couple travels to Sweden to visit their friend's rural hometown for its fabled Midsummer Festival, but what begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. Okay, fuck. So, I kind of love this movie a lot. Like, a lot. Fuck. I saw this movie last year. And since then, I watched it a solid dozen times because I loved it so much. It's probably one of my favorite all-time movies. Okay, so I've heard this movie is like the girl version of a guy's favorite movie being Fight Club, and I could defend it. I could, but it's correct. Men should be afraid. I'm just kidding. Apparently people have a hard time telling when I'm like joking. So I'm gonna start telling people I'm kidding now. So I'm like, I'm autistic. I'm just kidding. And I mean, if you think about it, like, here's my defense for Midsummer, right? The movie is really like a dream for a lot of women today. It's the same reason why you see so many sweet women in abusive relationships with awful men, because to a traumatized woman, we're so willing to overlook the bad if it means we're loved and accepted. But this movie is legitimately amazing. I mean, the scenes building up to the intro alone, ooh, fucking award worthy. Now, you may think, Faye, you're such a hypocrite. How can you hate violence but love that scene from Midsummer? And maybe I am. But Ari Aster just sits right. And another good reason that I like it, the ending is satisfying as fuck. So many horror movies fuck up the ending and leave me wanting, but Midsummer delivers. Enjoyment scale 10, pain scale 3, gore meter 5. And pain, maybe it's lower because I've seen it so many times, but the few gore scenes there are pretty intense, so I'll give it that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Ooh, released in 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper. His name is spelled like Tobe. When Sally hears that her grandfather's grave may have been vandalized, she and her paraplegic brother, Franklin, set out with their friends to investigate. After a detour to their family's old farmhouse, they discover a group of crazed, murderous outcasts living next door. As the group is attacked one by the chainsaw-wielding Leatherface, who wears a mask of human skin, the survivors must do everything they can to escape. This movie. Ooh, it was good. Ooh, I loved it. Ooh, it was timeless. It's like it wasn't even directed in the 70s. They had a super small budget. It got apparently like banned in a lot of places, which I don't get because it wasn't even that bad. I mean, it was freaky, but it wasn't even like gory or anything. The director intentionally lightened up on the gore aspect, intentionally to get a PG rating, but the MPAA was like, fuck you, that's too disturbing, and made it like rated X initially, and then like lowered it to an R rating. The ending came a little too soon for my liking and was very jarring, but damn, this movie was good. Very ahead of its time. The concept of a giant hulking man who you never see the face of running after you in the night with a chainsaw is terrifying, but most thriller directors today wouldn't be able to pull this off. I was on edge the entire time. Bonus points for a happy ending, sort of. I mean, like, everybody dies, except for one girl. It was very liberal, surprisingly, for the 70s. Like, there's this character in a wheelchair, and he, like, his sister convinced him to go out to, their family's old house, and there's, like, multiple stories, and so he was listening to everybody running around on the second floor, and he was stuck on the first floor, and he was just like, fuck you guys, which was pretty cool. I liked that. But I just gotta say, if this is what the director views as PG, then I'm definitely watching his other shit, because damn. Enjoyment scale 9, pain scale 5, gore meter 4. House of a Thousand Corpses. Fuck! I didn't like this movie. I didn't like it at all. Released in 2003, directed by Rob Zombie. An empty fuel tank and a flat tire lead two couples down a terror-riddled road to the House of a Thousand Corpses. House of a Thousand Corpses is at its core a story of family, a cast of twisted individuals who, with each slash of a throat or stab through the chest, add bodies to their sick human menagerie. Whatever, it doesn't matter. This movie was so disturbingly bad. You know how many times I was like, fuck this movie while watching it? Me and my poor friend who I forced to watch this shit with me. It has style. I'll give it that. Maybe give Rob Zombie another like 10 chances to direct a movie and maybe I'll actually like one. But fuck, it was convoluted. It was like trying, like, you know what Cabin in the Woods tried and succeeded in doing? That's what this movie made an attempt to do, but failed. The first half wasn't awful. Dwight from The Office is in it. Spalding, the clown dude, was the best character. And the chick who played the daughter was probably one of the worst actors I've ever seen. The editing choices made this shit feel so dated. Like, it looked like a music video. And legitimately, the Super Bowl episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia got me harder than this shit of the newer season, where Charlie, like, homes alone that shit. Rob Zombie, if only your movies could have been as good as your music. I'm just kidding. This is the only film of his I've seen. Enjoyment 2, Pain 2. I mean, I would have rated it higher if I could count how in pain I was while watching this bullshit. But I don't want to give it the satisfaction. Gore meter 3. The Hills Have Eyes. The Hills Have Eyes, released in 1977, directed by Wes Craven. Wes Craven's cult classic about cannibalistic mountain folk, including the Carter family, who were on the trail of a stranded vacationers in the arid Southwest California desert. I just fucking, oh my gosh. I hated it. It was so dated. Like, how did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre come out years before this, but didn't age a day? But this shit feels like a 70s movie. I mean, they went more disturbing routes, I guess. Like, they kill dogs, rape, eating babies. But I just wasn't scared of the cannibals. I think the thing that made it campy for me was the fact that they had bone jewelry like they were the fucking Flintstones. Enjoyment levels were way down. It wasn't fun. The final act was alright, I guess. Enjoyment 3, Pain 3, Gore 3. Tusk. Released in 2014, directed by Kevin Smith, a U.S. podcaster ventures into the Canadian wilderness to interview an old man who has an extraordinary past, and the American learns the man has a dark secret involving a walrus. Basically, the main character gets turned into a walrus, and it's an allegory for, like, the internet and shit, you know. Okay. So I have a history with this movie. I decided I hated it before I ever even saw it, because I assumed it was just like the Human Centipede, and I fucking hated the Human Centipede. I'll get into that in a minute, but the Human Centipede trilogy is like my mortal enemy. So I assumed it was the same director. Turns out it's not. Turns out it's produced by A24, which, I mean, I have yet to not like an A24 movie I've seen. So I saw the A24 card and was like, oh shit, maybe it won't be bad. Conflicting emotions about this movie. I don't want to die in Canada. I think I figured it out. I don't like these types of movies that are like gore porn and everybody dies and oh, wow, you know, the gore fest, because they make me feel like hopeless. Like, horror movies with sad endings always make me feel like I would probably kill myself if in that position, which is not a fun feeling, you know? What the fuck? Johnny Depp is in this movie? Anyways, like, at least if a character dies, then they're out of their misery, but having to live life as someone who's gone through shit like that, like, I couldn't. And movies like that make me feel like that feeling until I get sick. But I will say, the Johnny Depp scenes in this movie were fucking 10 out of 10. Howard, the crazy doctor, he was like a soldier or some shit, I don't know, but he made Wallace go down on him as a walrus. I'm pretty sure. They didn't show it graphically, but that's kind of the interpretation I got, which I loved. It was great. The symbolism was on point. The gore did its job, even though it didn't look great all the time. Characters were okay, plot was okay, villain motivation was alright. Johnny Depp was fucking amazing. I didn't love the ending, even though it kind of had to end like that to serve its point. It still makes me feel hopeless and shit, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of logic. Like, they just kept him as the walrus, and he lived in a zoo, and his girlfriend brought him fish to eat, even though he's still technically human. My friend didn't like it at all. And I kept, like, trying to defend it, mainly because I want to suck A24's cock, like, really hard. But, also I just got that Wallace got turned into a walrus. Got it. Enjoyment 8, Pain 5, mostly just because it fucking depressed me. Gore 3, like, it didn't show most of the gore. The comedy was pretty good, though. Like, I liked it. Hostel. Hostel is one of those movies that, like, my stepdad went to Iraq, pirated, and then, like, brought back with him, and my mom was like, you're not allowed to watch that, it's too scary. Meanwhile, she never watched it. And then I, like, actually do watch it after, like, my entire life of wondering what it was, and okay. It came out in 2005, was directed by Eli Roth. Best friends Josh and Paxton decide to spend the summer after college graduation on an all-out backpacking trip across Europe. While stopping in Amsterdam to indulge their tastes for drugs and sex, they meet Ollie, a like-minded traveler from Iceland. When the three bachelors set off to investigate enticing rumors of a Slovakian hostel in a city populated by lusty women, they find themselves drawn unwittingly into a deadly game. Basically, everybody starts disappearing, and then it turns out later that, they were basically being trafficked into this scheme for, like, rich people to murder people. This is such a 2005 movie, and look, I'm not somebody who necessarily believes in objectification, because I think you should be allowed to look at boobs and be like, wow, that's hot. But holy shit, the first 20 minutes of this movie so far really plays into the 2000s concept that women only existed for sex. Also, this is one of those movies where sometimes it's unnecessarily loud, but when people are talking, it's so quiet that you have to turn it up to 50 to be able to hear it. So I hate it. Just on that basis. It's just kind of telling that they'll gladly show naked women 30 times within the first 20 minutes, and this is a gore fest movie, but a man's penis? Too far, bro. How are you supposed to understand this shit without subtitles? Bro, that's what I'm wondering. There's this gang of little kids that harasses the main characters for money, and every time they show up on screen, my first thought is, oh shit, it's the gypsies. But something about it is just so amusing. Ari Aster saw this movie and was like, well, that was shit. Hold my beer. The main character, like, disappears, and then his friend is like, where the fuck is he? So he goes all around town looking for him, and he finds the girls who, like, trafficked them, and he's like, show me where he is. And they're like, oh, he went to an art gala. And then he gets them to, like, lead him to that gala, and they're all, like, cryptic and weird about it. And I just want to say that's exactly how I behave when I want to show people my favorite fucked up movies. Basically, the guy gets trafficked, and then he manages to escape, and he, like, saves a girl, and he goes running away in somebody's car, and he finds the girls who trafficked him, and you think he's just gonna drive away, but he fucking, like, maws that shit and takes them out. It's great. The gypsy kids come back threefold and beat the shit out of the dudes' asses. The first two acts sucked. I didn't like it. And then the last act was pretty cool. This entire movie was just, I'll go America all over your asses. The girl he saved, like, got her eye pulled out, and they get to a bus station, and she sees a reflection, and she was just like, if I can't be beautiful, I'd rather just die, and then fucking kills herself. And it gets bonus points for a happy ending. Enjoyment 4, pain 3. I don't know, it just didn't get me. I guess the most disturbing part was that, like, the second guy who went missing got his Achilles tendon slashed. So that was the only thing that I can think of that, like, stands out. Gore, like, a 6. Oh, fuck. Okay, The Human Centipede. My nemesis. I intentionally left this movie very last so that I could watch this and The Human Centipede 2 back to back, because I hate myself. Demon Centipede. Fuck. I hate this movie so much. Released in 2009, directed by Tom Six. Two pretty but ditzy American girls are on a road trip through Europe. In Germany, they end up alone at night, and when their car breaks down, they take shelter in an isolated villa. They wake up in the morning to find themselves in a makeshift hospital, along with a Japanese man. Here they meet a psychotic German surgeon whose lifelong fantasy is to connect humans together via their gastric systems. I first saw this movie when I was like 11, like 10 years ago, and it genuinely was the worst thing I've ever seen, and I've hated it ever since then. When I say worst, I don't mean worst as in, oh my gosh, it was so disturbing. I mean worst as in, 11-year-old me, whose favorite movie was Catwoman, was like, hey, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I didn't like it. This is the first time I'm rewatching it after trash talking it for a decade. Like, legit, every time I bring it up with my mom, she's like, oh, don't talk about it. That's so disturbing. Don't talk about it. And she's never even seen it. I watched it twice, and I'm fine. It's fucking stupid, dude. There are so many points when the main characters can get away, but they just don't, because they're stupid. I hate looking at the doctor's face. It's the same guy they casted in the third one, and I just hate looking at his face. It's shot like a porno. Like, I can't prove that all the actors are porn stars, but it feels right. The main character has a case of dumb bitchitis. It was a bit gorier than I remembered. 11-year-old me was a fucking badass. Doesn't mean it got me, though. It's such a solvable situation. Like, at one point in the movie, before they're in the Centipede, the main girl escapes and starts to run away, but decides to go back for her drugged friend, who she has to slowly drag through the house in order to escape. And then, of course, she gets caught because she's stupid. Basically, the doctor connects them via, like, flaps of skin to like, anus to face. And it's confusing because the stitches are fresh, and so, because you're just connected by these little flaps of skin, even if it was like muscle or something, you could rip yourself off, especially if the stitches are fresh. Am I wrong? Am I stupid? Oh, it makes me so mad. And the only question I have that they never gave me the answer to is, what does the girl on the end's shit look like? Because, I mean, the first guy eats dog food, then he shits into the second girl's mouth, she eats the shit, she shits into the second girl's mouth. What does the girl on the end shit look like? Tell me. And it's a good thing I watched this already, otherwise I would have no idea what's going on, because there's no subtitles on the pirated version, and I refuse to pay for it. I think it might even be on Amazon Prime, but I don't fucking know. So basically at the end, cops come and they're like, hey doctor, you're acting sus. And he's like, fuck you, no I'm not. And they like break into his house and they get into a shootout, and somehow in the process, the two cops, the trained professionals, end up getting taken out by this doctor. And then somehow in the process, the doctor dies. And then the Centipede, the main guy is Japanese, and he manages to break a window and has glass, a shard of glass, and he's holding it to the doctor. And then for some reason, he starts talking about God, and he's like, I think he was like, God must be punishing me or whatever. And then he slices his own throat. And then the girl at the end dies of shit overdose or something. And so it's just the girl in the middle. And the camera pans away dramatically. And it's like, oh, it's so sad she dies. But there's literally, I mean, the cops had to have told somebody they were there. And so when nobody hears back from them at the station, they're likely going to send more cops, right? And besides that, she's literally like 2 feet away is a bunch of broken glass that she can cut herself off with if she can't just rip herself off of the dude's asshole. Whatever, it's stupid. I remember everybody talking about it in elementary school, and they're like, oh yeah, the girl at the end dies, it's so sad. And I was like, wow, that sounds fucked up. And then I watch it when I'm like 11, and I'm like, this shit's fucking gay. Stupid ass. The only thing that was commendable about this movie is the relationship between the two girls, which is entirely without dialogue after like the second act. And it's for a good reason, because every time they open their mouth to talk to each other, you're like, well, I get why the doctor would sew it shut. Other than that, this was a garbage movie without plot or sense or anything commendable. Enjoyment 1, pain 3, gore 6. I'm done. You know, I'm currently on the 3rd tier, and it's kind of fucking me up already. I don't really like everything I'm seeing. It gets bad. I mean, there's a certain movie that made me cover my eyes, and I don't do that shit. You know, it like traumatized me a little bit. And me and my friends like it happened like a few weeks ago, and we still talk about it. But one thing I will say about this list is that it did give me some new favorites and forced me to watch a couple of classics that I kept putting off.
That's all, folks.